So let me begin by reminding all of us about the few things that came up for discussion during the last lecture. Uh, Basically, the essay can be divided into four or five parts. In all these parts, okay, one or the other characteristic feature or attribute of postmodern culture is discussed. Basically, this essay, as I have reiterated time and again, is about postmodern culture or postmodernism. The writer tries to enumerate the tendencies of postmodern culture and uh, postmodern art. Okay, and this is done by, first of all, giving us the names of postmodern artists, filmmakers, okay, musicians, architects in the first part. Then, by uh, linking postmodernism with the effacement of the distinction between high culture and low culture, which we can also, uh, you know, explain as the emergence of mass culture. So thereafter, there is a brief, small section which talks about the emergence of theory as another symptom of postmodern, you know, culture and postmodern tendencies. Theory is an open subject in which can appropriate, material, which can appropriate subject matter from varied disciplines like political science, literary criticism, history, sociology. So, what we mean to say is that the compartmentalization between academic disciplines has been done away with through the theoretical writings, okay, through a new discipline called theory. This essay is also an example of theory. Okay, if we look at it that way, this is also an example of theory because, strictly speaking, this essay can be described, cannot be described either as literary criticism, as a piece of historical writing, as a piece of political scientific commentary, or something related with sociology. It is all these things at one and the same time. So, this essay is also an example of theory, and we are reading theory in our classrooms, in our, syllabus. Okay, uh, which is evidence that theory has become a part and parcel of our academic and intellectual discourses. So, this was the second part. After that, there is a small section which links the rise of postmodernism with a few other things. One is the rise of neo-colonialism, the beginning of Green Revolution, and the uh, the expansion of information technology as a as one of the presiding, you know, systems, or one of the presiding mechanisms which control and influence our society. Today, we have reached a stage where technology has penetrated each and every aspect of our lives. Okay? Today's lecture is another example of this penetration. Okay? We are uh, exploring the options of having our classes through online modes with the mediation of technology. Okay? And in this way, we can say, and if we look at our smartphones, okay, which are amazing machines, how much of uh, dependence on smartphones, okay, is, uh, how much of dependence on smartphones has taken place today. All these things are evidence of uh, the expansion of information technology, computerization, and other, uh, you know, other uh, such developments. Okay. So he links, as I was saying, the rise of postmodernism with neo-colonialism, with the beginning of the Green Revolution, and the expansion of information and technology, the penetration of technology in our lives. And all this happened during the 1960s. So, in that sense, we can say that postmodernism is a phenomena which seems to have begun during the 1960s. He also describes postmodernism as a reaction against high modernism. I dwelt on this point for some time yesterday and told you that high modernism was characterized by abstractness and by experimentation, high degree of innovation. We have writers like James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, okay, who are popular exponents of high modernism. So this postmodernism is also understood as a reaction against high modernism. Loosely speaking, we can say, the way Jameson puts it, it would be safe to say that postmodernism is both an extension of modernism and a reaction against it. There are several aspects of modernism which find an extension in postmodernism, which are further intensified in postmodernism. And it is also a reaction against. It is both the things. Okay? And uh, let me remind you once again something I said yesterday, that modern basically means new. So both modern and postmodern are about different kinds of newness that affects our life. Life renews itself in every phase. Here also, according to Jameson, certain social tendencies, certain changes in social life and in the economic order are lending a new, uh, you know, an entirely new kind of a look to our life. Okay. So this is the journal discussion we had yesterday. I During the last part of my lecture yesterday, I told you how Jameson tries to link postmodernism with pastiche. Okay, how he tries to look at postmodernism in terms of pastiche. Pastiche is basically imitation, copy. In essay after essay, Jameson has tried to link postmodernism with two things. One is life of surfaces, that we have finally entered a phase where we cultural phenomena is more unfolds more at surface level, okay, and the depth models of our cultural experience are slowly being phased out. uh, your essay, Death of the Author, is about, directly or indirectly, it is about the same theme, that how the figure of the author, which in earlier models of interpretation, the figure of the author was considered to be very important. Okay? There was great reliance on authorial intention in our effort to understand the text. It was believed that if you want to understand the text, it can only be by decoding the authorial intention. Now, Roland Barthes' essay, The Death of the Author, does not only proclaim the death of the author, but it also says that interpretation can take place without the, uh, the figure of the author. or without reliance to the figure of the author. Okay, the reader is fully capable of decoding the text. So these kind of changes, okay, are taking place. And as I was saying, Jameson tries to understand postmodernism in terms of two things. One is pastiche. Pastiche is imitation or copy. So we have had a discussion on pastiche yesterday and how pastiche is different from parody. It doesn't have satiric impulse. It doesn't have secret sympathy with the original, and it does not basically uh, emerge from a consciousness of the deviation from the norm. Okay, parody focuses on these three things. It has satiric impulse. It has a secret sympathy with the original. Okay, the original, while making fun of the original, you do not disrespect the original. The original continues to be important. It continues to be an important specimen of art or literature. Yes, you do, you know, mock it, you do imitate it, okay, make fun of it by uh, identifying the ways in which it deviates from the norm. Okay, I gave you the example of Joseph Conrad. Now, Joseph Conrad, uh, in his writings, uses adjectives quite excessively. That doesn't mean that Joseph Conrad is not a serious writer, or he is not an accomplished writer of fiction. He is, but it is one of his attributes, and that attribute can be imitated. So that is what parody is all about. But pastiche, on the other hand, is described as dead parody. Okay? It is parody for the sake of parody. It is copying for the sake of copying, without either uh, without any of the ulterior motives of parody. Okay? It doesn't have satiric impulse. It doesn't indulge in satire. It does not have any secret sympathy for the original, nor does it concentrate on the deviations from the norm. So he looks at postmodern culture as a culture of pastiche. Why? I tried to answer this because, according to him, the possibilities of creating something new have been exhausted in the present times, okay, because of several reasons. Number one, the human beings today have become more assertive. Okay. The social discourses have assumed a polyphonic character. The earlier uh, sites of authority, okay, are being demolished. We are proceeding towards a more open world where the meaning of creativity is also undergoing change. Okay, and most importantly, where I ended yesterday, the uh, sense of personal self has also come to has also, I won't say come to an end, it has been replaced by something else. Now let us start from here. The sense of personal self, the idea that I have a unique self. Now when you have a unique self, you have a unique way of responding to reality. You have a unique perspective. You have a unique way of understanding the world. When the sense of personal self is lost, you lose the you lose your individualism, you lose your individuality, and you lose your capacity to respond to the world in a unique, personal, one of its kind way. So the rise of pastiche as one of the dominant features of our cultural life, okay, the proliferation of copies. Okay, proliferation, I do not have to go too much into detail to tell you how proliferation of copies is taking place. If you look around, okay, we are basically inhabiting a world where copies have become more important as compared to the original. In music, you have rehashed versions of multiple rehashing is taking place. Songs, okay, you have sequels being made of old movies. You are copying old styles and mixing them up with new ones. There are no restrictions or barriers on creating either fusion in music or some kind of eclecticism in your dressing up. So all this is a sign uh, of the fact that we are living in a world of copies. Okay? And Jameson says that this is happening because we have exhausted the possibilities of creating. The idea of uniqueness has now become a subject of interrogation. The idea, because we are living in a more open world. Okay? The power centers, the not the new power centers, the old power centers are now getting decimated. Okay? And the information technology, developments in the field of astrophysics and science, okay, have or and the emergence of multinational corporations and new colonialism, the dominance of America as a cultural and political superpower have all affected us in this way, that we have now, you know, two things have happened, that copies, there is a proliferation of copies. This is the best way of explaining it. There is a proliferation of copies. Okay? The copies have replaced the original. And second, as I said, we have the sense of personal self has been replaced by a new sense of self, okay, which we can say is a sense of self uh, uh, which is informed by so many different tendencies, by the uh, invasion of our lives by social media, by information technology, by the tools of communication technology, and developments of science, developments in the field of astrophysics. All these things uh, have made it inevitable for us to look at ourselves in a new light. So that middle class idea, it was basically a middle class idea that we have a personal self. And this idea, let me now, before I go to the next topic, that is schizophrenia, uh, this sense of self, as Jameson very clearly brings out, was not something transcendent. It was not something given to us by God. It was also a socially created. It was a socially created, approach to self. That we have a private life, we have a personal self, okay, which gives me the right to, respond in a unique, personal, individual way to the reality around me. So, this thing has been replaced. Today we are more fragmented. We, after the developments in the field of psychoanalysis, okay, the idea of a unified self, unified conscious self, okay, has also become, has also lost favor. Okay. We also look at ourselves as products of the new forces, whether it is the market or it is the consumer society. That also influences our sense of self. And we are susceptible to the new pressures of the political and economic forces. So all these things have altered our sense of self. Now, coming to the last part of this essay, which deals with schizophrenia. Okay. There is an intervening portion where there is a discussion on nostalgia film. I am skipping that because you can read it on your own. That is an example of pastiche, okay, nostalgia film, where the writer says that certain peculiarities of the past ages are copied in a very superficial manner. So there is no serious engagement with the past. And as we will see, schizophrenia also means the same. Schizophrenia basically refers to the loss of our sense of linearity in time. One, please note it. It refers to our loss of the sense of linearity of time. That time consists of a continuous chain of present, past, present, and future, where all three affect each other. So, schizophrenia, now I will be reading from that part. Schizophrenia basically refers to this tendency, as part of which, according to Jameson, we have lost the sense of linearity of time. We today fail. How we do it, I will just explain it. That we fail to look at time as a continuous process consisting of past, present, future, and where the three affect each other. So this sense of continuity. Okay? And the second casualty is of a schizophrenic social order is the loss of a historical consciousness, okay, of which nostalgia film is also a very good example. That our relationship with history has changed in a sense that we seem to have lost historical consciousness, and our engagement with the past is also very, very superficial. Okay. So what is this schizophrenia, and how does he link schizophrenia with the postmodern experience? Schizophrenia basically is a mental illness in which a person loses his or her capacity to link thoughts, emotions, and behavior. I am repeating, it is a mental illness which is also described as the problem of split personality, in which a person loses his or her capacity to uh, link thought, emotion, and behavior. So there is a disruption in thought, emotion, and behavior. Now, according to Jameson, it is, in order to understand postmodern culture, okay, we will have to look at it in terms of schizophrenia. Let me read from the text where this issue is taken up. I now want to turn to what I see as the second basic feature of postmodernism, namely its peculiar way with time. Now, this is it. Now I want to turn to what I see as the second basic feature of postmodern. What second? First is pastiche. It is a culture of copies, where originality, the possibilities of originality have been exhausted, and where the meaning of creativity has changed. And today we can, we can say this with greater amount of certainty when AI, or artificial intelligence, has just simply changed the meaning of creativity. Today, the same creativity which was linked with genius, which was linked with human intellect and thought, the originality of thought, okay, with some kind of a personal gift, has been reduced to a mechanical process. And we have now tools which can create songs, which can write essays, which can alter books, which can produce novels, which can compose music. So the entire idea of creativity has undergone a change. And this is an 1988 essay. So during those 40, even I don't know whether Fredric Jameson, who is still alive by the way, could have anticipated this kind of changes when he wrote that postmodernism is a world of copies. Today, we can say it with greater amount of certainty when AI through algorithms is producing, it has the capacity of churning out copies endlessly. And now he says it is a schizophrenic culture where one, as I said, we have lost the sense of linearity of time. That time is a continuous process. We now do not approach life in this way, that the present flows out from the past and then leads to a future, and the three have a, a kind of a the three of them, okay, are linked through some kind of harmony. So now I am reading from the text. I now want to turn to what I see as the second basic feature of postmodernism, namely its peculiar way with time. The notion of time has undergone a change, and that is described as schizophrenia. How? This is very interesting, and you will like it. Which one would call textuality a creature, but which I have found it useful to discuss in terms of current theories of schizophrenia. He says some people have called it textuality, others have described it as a creature, but for me, the most appropriate term to define this peculiar way with time is through the term schizophrenia. And then he gives 2-3 clarifications. One, he says, this is in the text, but very important for making your answers. So please pay attention to this. One, he says, I am using schizophrenia as a descriptive model and not diagnostic model. So he is obviously not taking it as an illness. When he uses the term schizophrenia, he is describing the society and not diagnosing. For him, the society is not sick. It is not a sign of sickness. So he says, I am using schizophrenia as a descriptive model, as a descriptive term and not a diagnostic term. After that, a little after this, somewhere towards the end of the same page from where I am reading, what we need to retain from this is the idea that psychosis, and more particularly schizophrenia, emerges from the failure of the infant to accede fully into the realm of speech and language. Now, basically, he is making use of the Lacanian concept of schizophrenia. Okay. Now, we will come back to Jameson, but let us first understand what is the Lacanian concept of schizophrenia. So obviously he is not saying, he quite clearly mentions it, that when I use the term schizophrenia, I do not mean that the postmodern artists are schizophrenic, that they are sick. He simply means that the sense of time has undergone a change. By schizophrenia, he means the sense of time has undergone a change. Okay. And then he refers to the Lacanian psychoanalysis, okay, according to which, now I will just read a few lines. As for language, Lacan's model is the now orthodox structuralist one, which is based on the conception of a linguistic science. So basically, in Lacanian psychoanalysis, Basically, in Lacanian psychoanalysis, our consciousness depends on our ability to get initiated into language. Get initiated into language as a system of science and understand the social function of language as a system of science. So, in the Lacanian model, language is a system of the three terms are used. You may be familiar with this because this has been taken from structuralism. Language is a system which is based on three terms: signifier, signified, and the referent. Three terms are responsible for the constitution of language as a social system, and our psychology and our consciousness acquires this system and makes us capable of leading our social lives. That is it. So there are three terms which are used here: signifier, which is the phonetic or the orthographic term, the written or the spoken word, signifier. And every signifier is linked with the signified, that is the concept. Okay, so if we take an example, CAT, cat, and the phonetic combination of three sound k, a, and t, they are the signifier for the concept of a cat. For the concept of a cat. Cat is a feline, four-legged animal from the feline family. Signifier, signified, and the referent. Referent is the real cat. So according to Lacan, our initiation into the system of signifiers, signifieds, and the referent is responsible for initiating us into the social order. Okay. Our life as social members of the society. Our life as members of the society is dependent on our initiation into language, into the system of signifier, signified, and referent. Now, cutting the long story short, schizophrenia basically refers to a problem where an individual fails to access language, fails to get initiated into this system of signifier, signified, and referent. This is called schizophrenia. The inability to acquire language, basically. The inability to understand the relationship between the signifier, signified, and referent. And those of you who have read linguistics would know that this relationship is basically socially constructed. It is an arbitrary relationship. It is not a relationship which can be described as transcendental or divine. Okay. Language is very much a social phenomena, and these are arbitrary relationships. Can you stop the recording for